The bride is shocked as in-laws host wedding barbecue without her after home rebuild. Emma's heart was pounding as she stepped onto the sun-warmed pavement of her quiet suburban street. The air was thick with the scent of freshly cut grass and the sweet buzz of blooming jasmine hanging from every fence post. It was a perfect summer morning. Too perfect, maybe. The kind of morning that should feel like a fresh start. After months of relentless work. Patience sown stitch by stitch, Emma had finally finished rebuilding what the fire took from her. Her dream home. Every board, every beam, every window humming with hope and careful design. And today, she was ready to share that joy, particularly with the newest addition to her small but growing family. She opened the wooden gate with a smile, only to freeze mid-step. From the backyard came an unexpected wave of sound, laughter rippling through the air, sharp notes of a guitar, clinking glasses, and the unmistakable sizzle of a barbecue. They were hosting a lively wedding barbecue, complete with multicolored string lights swinging low under the tall oaks, paper lanterns bouncing in the breeze, and clusters of bright summer flowers pinned to every chair. But there was one thing glaringly wrong. There was no sign of Emma's husband, and even worse, no sign of her. She stood there, invisible to the humming crowd, her chest clenched so hard her breath hitched. Her hands trembled, gripping the fence as buzzwords floated over the music. Milestone, celebration, family. Yet no invitation had ever come to her. The blending smells of smoky ribs and sweet cortados filled the space as children darted between legs, their laughter clashing with the muffled, a silent message wrapped in decorations and grilled meat? What in the world was she supposed to do now? She wanted to storm in, demand to know why she was left out, why they were acting like she was never part of this family to begin with. But something held her back. Curiosity, maybe. The hope that there was more behind this unfathomable betrayal. Maybe they had reasons. Maybe this gathering wasn't exactly what it seemed. Emma's fingers loosened on the fence. She took a shaky breath, feeling the heat of the summer sun on her skin, the distant pulse of music and chatter like a sharp blade against her calm. She stayed rooted by the edge of the party, hidden but watching, heart thrumming wildly. Should she step forward and confront them, or quietly retreat, hold safe the fragile peace she'd fought so hard to rebuild? Her eyes flicked over the crowd, searching faces for a hint, a crack in the polished smiles. The night was far from over. The story had only just begun. Hey, before we continue with this incredible story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without warning. Just take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content that's coming. And since you're there, leave that powerful like that helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know each incredible person who is part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. Emma's fingers slipped from the fence as a sudden crash shattered the party's cheerful hum. Heads jerked toward the house, a heavy, hollow thud that made Emma's heart twist. Someone was beaten against wood. A guttural scream followed, sharp and raw, cutting through the laughter like a blade. Emma's breath hitched. Her legs trembled but didn't move. People turned, eyes wide, mouths open. The music died down awkwardly, replaced by hurried footsteps and voices rising in panic. Through the narrow gap in the fence, Emma spotted her husband's face, white, strained, eyes darting wildly. He staggered into view, clutching his side, where blood bloomed dark and thick, on his crisp white shirt. Panic twisted his features. Pain and fear tangled inside a whisper. "Emma, I didn't want you to see this." Her skin prickled with cold sweat. What was happening? She felt the world cracking beneath the sunny sky she dreamed so much about. The in-laws, her in-laws, were gathering closer, their smiles wiped clean away, replaced by cold tension. Her mother-in-law's eyes locked on Emma, sharp, almost accusing. "You're not supposed to be here. You're not a part of this," she spat, voice low but fierce. Emma staggered backward, confusion and shock crashing through her like breaking waves. How could this be happening so fast? Why would they celebrate without her? And now, why was her husband bleeding, staggering in her direction? Suddenly, another figure emerged through the crowd. Sarah, her husband's sister. Face pale, shaking. In her hand was a crumpled envelope, the edges soaked with blood. It's his," Sarah stammered, voice barely above a whisper. "A letter we found before you came. He's been hiding something." Emma's world tilted. Her pulse roared in her ears, every breath sharp and slow. "What kind of something?" she managed to choke out. Before Sarah could answer, her father-in-law stepped forward, face hard as stone. "Emma, it's time you knew. Your husband, he's not who you think." The garden seemed to shrink, the string lights flickering wildly, shadows dancing on faces twisted with unease. Emma's husband sank onto a wooden chair, clutching the wound, sweat beading on his forehead. Then, voice strained and breaking, he blurted out, "I didn't tell you because I wanted to protect you, but you deserve the truth." The crowd leaned in, breaths caught, flimsy veil of celebration, shredded in an instant. Emma's hands went numb, eyes wide. "Tell me." He swallowed hard. "The fire that destroyed our home? It wasn't an accident. I was responsible. And there's more. I've been living a lie ever since." A breathless silence swallowed the yard. Then someone gasped near the barbecue. Eyes darted around, searching for the source. Emma felt her knees buckle. A voice, shaking with horror, whispered just behind her. "Did you know he was having an affair? With your best friend." The words hit her like a stun grenade, shattering everything, breaking trust like dry glass. Her heart twisted in a slow, unstoppable knot of grief and rage. She turned sharply, scanning the crowd in disbelief. Faces stared back, some guilty, some smug. The story she thought she knew was a lie, and Emma was left, standing alone, shattered on the sunlit pavement, the echo of that terrible secret hanging heavy in the summer air. The night was no longer just a party. This was the start of an unbearable reckoning. The words hit Emma like a brutal slap. Her chest tightened so fiercely it was hard to breathe. She blinked, searching faces smeared with shock and whispering betrayals. The garden felt colder now, even under the hot sun, as if the warmth had bled out of everything. Her husband's eyes locked with hers, confused, desperate, broken. The faces around her shifted, some avoiding her gaze, others openly scowling. Fingers pointed in silent accusation. Then, without warning, the scream came again, this time sharp and guttural. Everyone jerked toward the house, where a new wave of chaos spilled out. Emma's breath stalled. From the open door stumbled a figure, a man none of them recognized. His clothes were torn and dirty, hands stained with something dark. He collapsed on the steps, gasping, clutching his chest like it was breaking apart. The father-in-law snapped his head sharply, eyes darkening like storm clouds. "Who the hell is that?" he barked. The stranger's voice was ragged, barely a whisper at first. "It's me. I'm the one who did it." The crowd froze. Emma's mouth went dry. Her heart hit the inside of her ribs like a drum. Her husband, pale lips trembling, swallowed and whispered, What do you mean?" The man coughed up blood, then forced the words out. "I set the fire." A silence so deep it felt like the air vanished hung heavy. Emma's knees shook uncontrollably. She gripped the fence post, nails digging into wood, skin slick with sweat. "I was paid," the man said, voice cracking, "by someone from this family." Gasps echoed. Eyes flew to the mother-in-law, her face dead still, but her eyes sharp like knives. Emma's breath caught. The story shifted again. The betrayal wasn't just her husband's secret. It ran deeper. Suddenly, the mother-in-law stepped forward, voice cold and steady, cutting through the stunned quiet. "Yes, I hired him," she admitted, every word falling like stones. "To teach Emma's husband a lesson." A low murmur rippled through the crowd, rising to confused whispers. Emma's hands trembled so hard she thought they might drop. "You wanted to hurt him? Why?" she said, voice cracking, raw. The mother-in-law's eyes flashed, rage burning behind polished calm. "He was weak. Controlled by lies. I had to protect the family, even if it meant burning it all down." Emma stared, mind spinning. The fire, the lies, the hidden wounds. It was all worse than she imagined. Her husband's eyes darkened, a flash of anger mixed with fear. "Mom, you don't know what you did. You don't know what you started." A sudden noise interrupted, the sharp crack of glass breaking behind them. All heads whipped around. Emma's best friend, Sarah, stood at the fence, trembling, holding a small, shaking hand. Emma's breath hitched as recognition slammed into her chest. It was a child. A tiny girl, no older than 6. She stared wide-eyed at Emma. In that moment, Sarah's voice broke, barely audible. "Emma, I'm sorry. It's not just an affair. It's more." Emma's heart stopped, frozen mid-beat. "What do you mean?" she gasped. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "Your husband, he's not the father." The words hung like poison. A deafening silence swallowed the backyard. The little girl reached out, clutching Emma's leg with fragile fingers. Emma's world shattered again. The puzzle she thought was coming together smashed into a bigger, darker mess. Her husband took a shaky step forward, voice barely more than a breath. I wanted to tell you, but I was scared, so scared." Emma looked around. The twisted faces, the broken trust, the bleeding wounds, everything she knew was gone. And yet the worst part was still waiting. Something darker turning beneath it all. Her eyes met the stranger's again, the man who confessed to starting this nightmare. His gaze was steady, but unreadable. "Emma, you don't know the half of it," he said. Her heart dropped. Before she could answer, sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. The garden's tense silence broke into frantic shouting. Emma's mind raced, drowning in questions. Who would betray who next? How deep did this nightmare go? And most of all, who was really on her side anymore? The sky darkened with the coming storm, and Emma was left breathing in the first cold gust of the unknown. The sirens were getting closer now. A sharp whistle cutting through the tense air. The crowd was thick with whispers, stares ricocheting like stones. Emma's legs trembled beneath her, heart slamming like a trapped bird. She barely heard the footsteps pounding toward the gate. Then, just as a sudden breeze kicked the string lights into a frantic dance, a sharp cry sliced through the stunned hush. A sound so raw it stopped everyone cold. Emma spun around, eyes wide. Her mother-in-law was lying on the ground, clutching her chest, face pale as a ghost. Her breath came in shallow gasps, each one more desperate than the last. "Mom, what?" Her husband dropped beside her, hands trembling as he pressed down on the tight-fitting blouse, now soaked red with blood. A wet, rattling noise came from her lips. Then silence. The crowd froze. Emma felt the world tilt again. "Call an ambulance! Now!" she shouted, voice breaking as panic burst through her veins. Sarah was on the phone instantly, her hands shaking. The little girl clung to Emma's skirt, wide-eyed and silent. But before anyone could move, a sudden, harsh crack rang out, like a gunshot. People screamed and scattered. Emma's heart stopped. She turned toward the noise, eyes straining through the blur of panic and dust. There, near the edge of the garden, their quiet neighbor, Mr. Allen, a man no one expected, lay sprawled on the ground, a dark stain spreading across his jacket. His eyes stared blank and unseeing into the overcast sky. Emma's mouth went dry, her breath vanished like smoke. "What the hell?" someone gasped behind her. She's a killer," the stranger from before whispered, staggering forward, face pale as death. Emma whirled, shock rooting her to the spot. Her husband's eyes were wide, but strangely calm. "No," he said, voice low, steady, and colder than ice. "It's not who you think." Trembling, Emma looked to the fallen neighbor again. The man had been the one who confessed to setting the fire. But now, dead. And then her husband reached into his pocket, slowly, deliberately, and pulled out a small, crumpled photo. Emma's chest seized as she recognized the sharp black and white image. It was her, smiling, holding the little girl. But behind her in shadows was someone else, a man she didn't know. Her husband's hand trembled as he showed the photo to the crowd. "This man," he said, voice barely above a whisper, "is the one who paid the stranger to set fire to our home." He paused, eyes flicking to the mother-in-law's motionless form. But it wasn't her. It was me. Gasps exploded around her. Sarah's sobs broke through the silence. Emma's world went dark for a moment. He looked at her, eyes soaked with guilt and something darker. "I wanted to protect us from him, from the truth he held, from this family's lies." The stranger stepped forward, blood dripping from his mouth, shaking his head. "You don't know what you've done," he spat. "You're both trapped. You all are." Emma's knees buckled then, her breath catching, heart pounding so loud it filled her ears. Questions crashed inside her like waves. Who had really betrayed her? Who was protecting whom? And what had her husband been hiding all along? Sirens wailed louder now, lights flashing beyond the fences. But Emma barely heard them. Because in that moment, nothing made sense anymore. And the nightmare was only just beginning. The sirens screamed closer, treading the tense quiet that had wrapped the yard like a thick, choking fog. Emma stood frozen, every nerve alive, heart hammering against her ribs, as the flashing lights threw sharp shadows across the chaos. The trembling stranger spat out blood again, then sank onto the grass, his breath shallow and ragged, like the last flickers of a dying fire. The crowd shifted, a restless tide crashing against the edges of panic and disbelief. Then, without warning, a new sound tore through the turmoil. The sharp crack of a phone hitting the ground. Heads snapped toward the sound. Emma's eyes flicked to her husband, just as his face twisted, pale, like he'd been punched in the gut. His lips moved, barely a whisper. No, 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 no. Emma blinked. He held up a badge with a slow, grave nod. Everyone stop! No one moves. A sharp silence swallowed the garden. Emma Walker? His voice was low, steady, charged with something that made the air crack. She shook her head in disbelief. That's me. He stepped closer. Ma'am, I need you to come with me. Now. Shock rippled through the crowd. Her husband's jaw dropped, eyes wide. Then he scrambled forward. Wait, she's... Sorry, the sheriff cut him off, eyes narrowing. She's the main suspect. Emma's breath hitched, heart pumping instinctively. Suspect? She stared at him, mouth dry. What? No, I don't understand. What? Her voice broke, trembling like glass on stone. The sheriff's gaze was steady, unblinking. You're under arrest for arson, assault, and conspiracy to commit fraud. A heavy gasp surged through the crowd. Faces froze, the color draining from them like paint left out in the sun. Her husband's eyes dropped to the ground, his face crumpling like a torn letter. Emma, you didn't tell me. His voice was ragged, filled with pain, or was it betrayal? Emma's legs gave way. The world spun, dizzy and cruel. Arson, she whispered, shaking her head, trying to grasp air. You're wrong. I didn't do anything. I was the victim, just like you all. The sheriff's hand stayed firm on her arm. We have evidence, Miss Walker. Your name came up in multiple witness statements. A neighbor saw you near the house that night. And, from what we've uncovered, there's more. Her pulse raced, pounding like a wild drum in a hollow chest. Before she could speak, her husband's voice cracked through the cold night. Emma, why did you hide the truth about the house insurance? The money that never made it back? The second mortgage no one knew about? The breath left her in a sharp hiss. The crowd's murmurs swelled. Accusation, shock, disbelief, and then, low and furious, she was playing us all. You mean to say she burned it down herself? Emma's throat tightened, lungs closing. Eyes stinging, she swallowed the bitter taste of 1,000 broken promises. No, she breathed, hands shaking. I didn't. But the scene spun out of control. Suddenly, Sarah stepped forward, her voice trembling but loud. Wait! If Emma's the suspect, then who paid the stranger? Who killed Mr. Allen? It's not her. Silence cracked again. The sheriff's eyes flicked sharply toward Emma's husband. He's been withholding information. We found messages, plans between him and the hitman. Deals cut in blood. Emma's blood froze solid. Her husband's face twisted, the mask slipping. You don't understand. I did it to stop her, to keep our family safe. Her legs refused to hold firm. Then a sharp gasp sliced through the night as the little girl, a shadow in the yard, stepped forward, clutching Emma's hand with the smallest, coldest grasp. I know, the child whispered, voice strange and small. Mommy's not the only one with secrets. Daddy has secrets too. Big ones. Eyes widened, breaths caught. Emma's husband's face drained of color. The sheriff's gaze hardened. The night swallowed the silence in one heavy breath, the storm breaking louder than the sirens. And then, a phone, left ringing on the ground, finally stopped. The truth hadn't just cracked, it exploded. And now, Emma had to decide, fight back or disappear into the night that swallowed her whole. The ringing phone finally stopped. The crowd held its breath, like the whole world was about to crack open. Emma's legs felt like jelly, heart pounding, blood roaring in her ears, every eye burning into her. Her husband's face was pale, but steady, like he was waiting for something to break him, waiting for it to all fall apart. Then suddenly, a sharp, cold voice cut through the chaos. "Enough!" Everyone snapped toward the source. The sheriff's jaw tightened. His eyes narrowed under the heavy shadows. Ahead of him stepped a woman, tall, slender, dressed in a dark coat that seemed to swallow the dim light. Her presence straightened the tension like a steel rod piercing the night. "Wait," she said, voice low but carrying. "Before we drag any more secrets into the open, I have something to show you." Emma blinked, confusion stabbing her chest. This woman wasn't someone she recognized. Not a neighbor, not a cop. The woman moved forward, peeling open her coat to reveal a badge. Federal. FBI. A low murmur spread through the crowd. The sheriff's posture shifted, almost reluctantly. "I'm Agent Mills," the woman said, eyes sharp and hard like broken glass. "And you all have no idea the storm you've stepped into." Emma's husband swallowed. Sarah gasped. Agent Mills tapped a small folder on her hip. "We've been watching this family for months. More than just old grudges or a messy feud. We're talking organized crime, money laundering, corruption." A newcomer's voice whispered behind Emma. "No way." The agent ignored it. "The fire? The murder of Mr. Allen? They're symptoms, not the cause." Her eyes flicked over the stunned faces. Restless whispers spiraled like wildfire. Emma's breath hitched. Then the world tipped over. Agent Mills reached into the folder and pulled out a photo. The crowd leaned in, drawn like moths. It was a grainy, hidden camera shot. Emma's husband, not just standing near the fire that night or acting confused, but handing over a thick envelope, fat with cash, to a man behind the stranger who confessed. Emma's breath froze mid-shake. The agent's voice dropped to ice. He's not just a victim or a liar. He's the one running the show. A chorus of shocked gasps erupted. Sarah's hands flew to her mouth. Emma's knees buckled. Her husband's face twisted in a mask of rage and fear. "No, that's not true." Agent Mills stepped closer, voice sharp as a blade. "We also found your name, Emma, on documents tied to offshore accounts, just like your husband's." Gasps shifted to whispers. "She's part of it too?" Emma's heart shattered, every beat splintering beneath the weight. But then, before she could catch the fall, the agent added, "There's more." She flipped open the folder again and pulled out a video. The screen played blurry, grain footage of Emma, laughing, too casual, meeting with the stranger who set the fire, handing him a small package. The garden fell silent. Even the night held its breath. Emma's world collapsed into a void. Her own hands clenched, trembling uncontrollably. She looked to her husband, whose cold, dark eyes finally met hers. No plea, no regret, only calm. "You weren't just a victim," his voice came low and steady. "You were a partner, just like me." The little girl clung harder to Emma's skirt, whispering, "Mommy, what's happening?" But Emma could only see the shattered reflection of everything she thought she knew. Broken trust, lies layered over lies. And now, every truth she fought for was a lie. The party, the fire, the secrets, they weren't sparks of disaster. They were flames she and her husband fueled together. Suddenly, the siren sounded again, closer, louder. The night swallowed the words, the faces, the broken pieces. Emma's breath hitched, cold sweat slicking her skin. And the world blinked. Because if her husband was the puppeteer, and she was complicit, then the question that clawed at her throat was, what was she running from? And who was she really running with? Her own reflection in that glass, fractured, dark, unknown. The nightmare wasn't over. It had only just begun. The night seemed to hold its breath. The flashing lights cast twisted shadows across Emma's face, cold, sharp, and broken. Her stomach plummeted, cold sweat slicking her skin. She could barely move. The weight of the folder, the photos, the video, they crushed her like a stone. Her husband's words hung heavy in the air, dark and certain. You were a partner, just like me. The slow, cruel truth, it seared through her chest. And then, a sudden crack. The crowd gasped again. Emma's eyes snapped toward the sound. A hand, thin, shaking, pushed through the mass. The little girl, the one clinging to her skirt. Her eyes weren't wide with fear anymore. They were sharp. Too sharp. "Mommy," she said, voice steady but small. "You don't know everything. You never knew." The crowd turned. Whispers spread, hushed and curious. Emma's heart flipped. "What do you mean?" The girl swallowed, biting her lip. "The truth isn't with the fire or the money. It's in the blood." Silence slammed the space. Even the dry leaves stopped rustling. Then, suddenly, the girl reached inside her small jacket pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Emma's breath hitched, her hands trembling. The sheriff stepped forward, brow furrowed, voice low. "What's that, sweetheart?" The girl's eyes flicked between the faces, then looked straight up at Emma. "This," she said softly, unfolding the paper with care, "is the letter Mommy never showed you." A chill swept through Emma. Her mind raced, but the knot in her throat tightened so much it hurt. The girl's voice cracked the silence like glass breaking. "Mommy wrote it. The day before the fire." The paper trembled in the girl's hand. The crowd leaned in. Sarah gasped, fingers covering her mouth. Emma tried to look away. Her hands clenched, nails biting into her palms. "It says... The little girl's voice faltered, voice barely above a whisper. "John's not your husband. I'm your real father." The words exploded like a grenade in the garden. Emma's world spun. Her legs buckled, and she gripped the nearest chair, heart pounding so loud it blocked everything else. Her husband froze, pale as frost, eyes wide but unreadable. For the first time, no fire of anger, just cold fear. The girl folded the letter again, eyes steady. "Daddy never wanted you to know. He lied about everything. About the fire, about the money, about us." The crowd gasped, murmurs rising like a storm. "Us?" Emma whispered, voice cracking into a sob. The girl's small hand reached up, brushing Emma's cheek lightly. "Yes, Mommy. John isn't your husband." Emma's breath caught as the impossible crashed into her soul. Behind her, the stranger coughed again, blood red and thick on cracked lips. He whispered, "It's true. She was never the wife. Not really." Emma's head spun like a whirlpool, thoughts tangling in chaos. Then, suddenly, sharp shattering, a voice behind her screamed, "No, this can't be." She turned slowly, eyes catching Sarah's pale, desperate face, tears streaking down like rivers. "Ella," she cried, "everything's been a lie. But you aren't the villain here." Heart shattering, Emma stumbled back. The night swallowed her whole, and in an instant, everything she believed, her love, her family, her truth, was gone. The fire hadn't just burned her house down. It had erased her entire life. And now, in the dark, only one question shone like a knife. Who was she, really? And what had she been running from all along? Emma stood frozen, the weight of the letter slamming into her chest like a fist. Her throat closed tight, hands trembling so badly she could barely hold on to the chair. Around her, the garden dissolved into a blur of shocked faces and hushed whispers, twisting into questions she couldn't answer. The little girl's words hung in the air, thick and heavy. "John isn't your husband." Emma blinked, her vision swimming. Her knees trembled, but before she could collapse, a sharp noise cut through the silence. A sudden sound, slow, deliberate footsteps on the wooden porch. Every head turned. The crowd's murmur turned to a frantic hush, stretching thin like stretched wire. There, stepping out of the shadows, came a figure even more unexpected. Emma's breath caught. It was her mother, Emily. She looked nothing like the warm, kind woman Emma remembered. Her eyes were dark, cold pools, burning with a sharpness that made Emma's skin crawl. Her hair was pulled back tight, her face tense and unreadable. Emily's gaze locked onto Emma's. No warmth, no comfort, just a hard, ruthless stare. "Enough lies," Emily said, voice low and cracked. "It's time you know the real truth." The crowd stiffened. Even the stray breeze seemed to hold its breath. Emma's heart slammed against her ribs. "Mom, what are you doing here?" Emily's lips tightened into a thin line. "I came to stop the game before it destroys us all." Before anyone could react, Emily pulled something from her coat, a slim tablet glowing with blue light. She hit play. The screen flickered to life, and a new video spilled onto the stunned faces, grainy but undeniable. Emma's eyes widened in horror. There she was, but not the innocent victim she wanted to be. The video showed her meeting with a man in a dark alley, exchanged a thick envelope. Not just that, her face twisted with fury as she pointed a gun. The man stumbled, clutching his chest, falling. Gasps shattered the silence. "Is that—" Sarah's voice cracked, horror blooming on her face. Emma's lips trembled. Her heart froze solid. That's not possible," she whispered. "I would never." Emily's voice cut through, sharp as broken glass. "You did, Emma. You're not just part of this. You started it." The crowd reeled. The sheriff's eyes narrowed, lips pressed tight. Emma shook, tears burning trails down her cheeks. John stepped forward, face pale, eyes haunted. "I was protecting you, not from others, from yourself." Emma's world tilted and shattered all at once. The little girl clung to her skirt again, wide eyes suspicious, whispering, "Mommy, you lied to me too." Emma's knees gave out. The ground rushed up, but before she hit it, one last sound broke through the chaos. A chilling laugh from behind. Slow, cold, mocking. Emily's head turned. From the shadows, a tall figure emerged. The stranger. The man who'd confessed to the fire. Blood dripping from his mouth. A cruel smile split his face. "You think you know the truth?" he hissed, voice dripping venom. "You have no idea who you're really dealing with. She's not the only monster here." Everyone froze again, hearts pounding in the sudden silence. Then he reached into his coat. Slowly. With a sudden flash, the metal glinted under the lights. A badge. A police badge. Not just any cop. His name, clipped on the side, read Detective Harris. The crowd gasped. Emma's mind screamed. "Wait, he's working with them?" Emily's eyes snapped to Harris, filled with fury and fear. Harris grinned sharp, stepping closer. "You want to believe the family drama is the real story?" he sneered. "But the biggest lie? It's all been a cover-up. Emma shook violently. "We've been hunted," Harris spat, "by someone inside this town. Someone with power. Someone who needed a scapegoat." His eyes locked on Emma's husband. "You, John, you thought you were running the game? You were just a pawn." Emma stared at John. He swallowed hard, blood draining from his face. Then Harris's gaze landed on Emma. "And you, none of you are who you pretend to be." The garden erupted into chaos. Emma's heart twisted into knots tighter than ever before. She whispered, wide-eyed and broken, "What do you mean? Who am I?" But Harris only smiled. "Soon," he said, "very soon, you'll understand everything." The night closed in like a trap, and Emma was left clutching at shadows, drowning in a storm that had just become darker and far more dangerous. The nightmare wasn't over. It had just flipped inside out. The night hung thick, heavy with secrets and broken truths. Everyone's eyes were glued to Detective Harris. His words cut sharper than knives. Emma's hands trembled so violently. She had to grip the chair harder, nails digging into worn wood to keep from collapsing completely. Then silence, deep and choking, broke the moment. A slow, deliberate clapping sliced through the stillness. Heads whipped around. From the shadows, a tall, slender figure stepped forward. Her smile was cold, calculated, a smile that didn't reach her eyes. It was Emma, but not the woman everyone thought they knew. Her voice was quiet, but deadly clear. "You've all been fools." The crowd froze. The sheriff's jaw slackened. Even the FBI agent's eyes narrowed with suspicion. Emma straightened, stepping away from the chair like someone shedding skin. "I've played the perfect victim," she said, voice low and sharp, dragging the words out like a brand. The trusting wife, the broken woman, the innocent caught in the crossfire. Her husband staggered back, eyes wide, lips trembling. "Emma, what?" She smiled, cold and tired. "You didn't know the truth. No one knew." The little girl gasped, clutching Emma's skirt. Emma turned, her gaze softening just a little. "But I never lied to her." Heads spun. Murmurs erupted, whispers turning into frantic questions. "How? What are you saying?" Her eyes flicked back to the crowd, shining like storm clouds. "I'm the one who hired the stranger. The one you call the killer. I paid him to light the fire." Gasps exploded. People recoiled as if burned. She raised a hand, still calm, still controlled. "There was a reason. You all thought it was John who was running things, but it was me. Always me." Her husband's face twisted in confusion, a new fear blooming there. "You think I wanted to watch you burn everything down?" he blurted. Emma's laugh was bitter, brittle. "No, you were just a pawn too." She looked past him, fixated on the dark figure of Detective Harris, whose smug grin faltered. "You thought you were the puppet master? Me too." Emma's voice dropped, colder than ice. "The truth is, none of you saw the real game. The family, the lies, the fire, the murder. It was all a cover for what I've been hiding." The crowd shuddered, but no one moved. Then, with sudden speed, Emma reached into her coat and pulled out a small, worn box. She flicked it open. Inside, a tiny blinking device, a live feed. Gasps roared back as the screen crackled to life. There, crystal clear in the glow, was a recording. Emma's own face, calm and composed, but cold. From the shadows, a voice whispered in the video. Her voice, unmistakable. Emma's heart hammered, but she held steady. "I've been running this town longer than you've known, longer than you dared guess." The camera panned, revealing faces in the room, masked and silent. Then a shot of her mother, Emily, receiving a thick envelope. The crowd twisted, staring in shock. Emma's voice cut through the chaos, sharp and unyielding. She wasn't the enemy. She was my partner. Her husband's face crumpled, rage and betrayal colliding. I never knew. I thought I was protecting you. Emma's eyes glowed, fierce and unbending. But the truth is darker. I destroyed my own life to keep a secret that isn't even mine. Then the little girl's voice trembled, breaking through the roar. Mommy, what secret? Emma swallowed hard, the weight suddenly crushing. She looked down into those young eyes, so innocent, so shattered already. The one I buried. Before anyone could speak, the screen flashed again. This time a photo, grainy but clear. It showed Emma and a man. Tall, shadowed, a man no one recognized, but whose hands held something impossible. A small bundle. Emma's breath hitched. Her own eyes widened in the screen's glow. The crowd's murmur turned to stunned silence. Emma looked up, the flame in her chest flickering into a raw, hollow ache. There's one last truth, she whispered. Her hands clutched the chair, voice barely audible. The child isn't theirs. Not mine, not John's. Eyes locked on her, desperate and wild. I buried her to protect you all. The night cracked open like broken glass, and in the silence that followed, only one terrible question hung. What else had Emma hidden? And who was really the monster in the dark? The crowd was still, caught in the heavy quiet that followed Emma's confession. Her voice trembled as she spoke those last words, the secret she'd buried, while the little girl clung tightly to her skirt, eyes full of something raw and old beyond her years. The weight in the air felt like thick fog, smothering every breath. But then, out of nowhere, a sharp, wet sound cracked through the stillness. A scream. Not from the crowd. From inside the house. Everyone jerked, turning toward the open door. Emma's heart pounded so loud it felt like it would burst free. She started moving, footsteps quick but unsure. Inside the dim hallway, the air was stale with smoke and silence. Then from the shadows, a figure collapsed in the doorway. A man, pale, bloody. He was gasping, clutching his chest where blood blossomed bright and red. Emma's throat closed tight. "Who are you?" she whispered, voice barely steady. The man's eyes flickered, wide and wild. "I'm not who you think," he rasped. More footsteps thudded behind Emma. The crowd spilled in, murmurs hitting sharp like stones. Suddenly, the man's head lolled back. His eyes rolled up, dead. Emma felt ice shatter her veins. Before she could react, the lights flickered and died. Darkness swallowed the room whole. Then, sinister and sly, the faint sound of a phone buzzing. A cold gleam cut through the black. The little girl holding out a phone with trembling hands. The screen lit up with a video call. Emma's stomach dropped. The face on the screen, a woman, was unmistakable. Her mother, Emily. Her smile was cruel, eyes sharp as shattered glass. "Did you miss me?" Emily's voice whispered through the speaker. Silence broke like glass underfoot. Emma's body froze, every movement locked tight. Her mother's image flickered, then shifted to show something else. A room. A vault. Stacks of cash. Documents labeled with Emma's name. Emily's voice chilled the air colder still. "You thought you were the master of secrets, but you're my puppet, and I control the strings." The phone slipped from the girl's hands, clattering to the floor. Emma swayed, chest tight as if someone squeezed her ribs. Suddenly, a cold hand gripped her arm. It was John. His face was pale, but something in his eyes had broken, the darkness peeling back to something raw. "I didn't just protect you," he snarled, voice low and twisted. "I never truly married you." Gasps spread like wildfire. Emma blinked in disbelief. "What?" John's lips curled into a bitter smile. "This whole time, I was pretending, using you." He shoved her sharply. Pain lanced through her side. The crowd gasped again. Emily's voice echoed from the phone. "You're both pawns in a larger game. And tonight you play your last move." Suddenly, the front door slammed shut with a thunderous bang, locking. The little girl's eyes filled with tears. "We're trapped," she whispered. Emma's breath caught as panic surged up her spine like ice water. There was a sound, slow, deliberate. Footsteps, coming down the stairs. But it wasn't any of them. It was someone else. Someone no one expected. A figure stepped into the fading light, a man with cold eyes and a smile carved from shadows. "Hello, family," he said softly. The room fell deathly silent. And in that moment, Emma realized the nightmare wasn't just inside this family. It was far bigger, far darker. And it had only just begun.